Language Center. And I'm also the UK director of the Confucius Institute for Business London, which is a partnership between LSE and Tsinghua University. So it's our great pleasure to welcome you to this conference. It's a very specialized conference, and I'm really grateful for people sacrifice your weekend by the end of the term, to join this conference and talk about the issues that we are all interested in, which is teaching Chinese for academic or specific purposes. So a little bit about LSE, if you don't know. So we are the social science, single faculty social science institution, and #1 in Europe and the second in the world, just after Harvard. And what we do in terms of our language center, because we are a social science focused institution, so our language teaching within the language center has also this vision and ideology of teaching language for specific purposes and for social science purposes in particular. And at the Language Center, we teach 10 different languages, and we offer 2 BSc degree programs. One is BSc International Relations and Chinese. The other is BSc Language, Culture and Society. So later today, we will also talk a little bit more about how we approach teaching Chinese for IR, which is also very excited in collaboration with Fudan University. So in terms of this conference, this is the second one we run. Last time was 5 years ago. I can't believe how time flies. So last time was 5 years ago when we were actually thinking about we're gonna launch a whole BSc IR in Chinese at LSE. And now we are already second year into the program. And if you notice the conference program, so we will have quite a bit of agenda about teaching Chinese for IR, but also very much teaching Chinese for business, because this conference is in collaboration with Confucius Institute for Business. So we have a lot of expertise and experience to share, but also we look at tourism and law. So we want to expand the range and subjects that we tap into. And a little bit about the conference in terms of the conference itself will be bilingual. So please feel free to either use English or Chinese as the language you see fit. And all the webinar will be for keynote speakers, and you can use Q&A to ask your questions. And then we also, as Li Jun mentioned at the beginning with Angela, we have some social activities, a lot of reflection. So we want to keep it quite kind of social and informal to offer a lot of opportunity for people to actually get to know each other and have discussion. So it's a very important thing to meet like-minded people in this conference. So I would like to pass on to my counterpart, our China director, Professor Wang Jinghui from Tsinghua University, to also say a few words. And Professor Wang Jinghui is a professor from Tsinghua University. Her own research field is comparative literature and translation. And in addition to being the China director of CIBO, she's also a PhD supervisor and deputy director of Australian Studies Center, Department of Foreign Language and Literatures and at the Tsinghua University, also vice president of Association of Literature and Transcultural Study of CAFL and vice president of the Association for Bilingual Studies of Chinese Classics. So Jinghui, you will be pleased to know we have quite a few colleagues from Australia joining us today. So overall, pass to you. Thank you, Jinghui.
OK，我被 Catherine 告知我应该作为中方院长用汉语说，那我就用汉语来欢迎大家，真是来自于世界各地的专家学者。那么就请允许我代表伦敦商务孔院热烈的欢迎各位来到这里共同的在网络上探讨学术汉语课程的发展。我呢先介绍一下伦敦商务孔院的大概的情况。我们这个孔院呢是在2006年建立，当时的发起单位呢是汇丰银行、渣打银行、德勤，还有太古集团、英国石油公司。那它的中国的合作院校呢就是清华大学。实际对于这个 LSE 和清华来说呢，都是属于这个伦敦商务孔院呢是唯一的一家。所以呢，由我们这2所大学共同运营的这个单位呢，是建立在一种互相尊重、互相支持的基础上。我们把它看作是2校建立的一种合作伙伴关系的一个里程碑。那么，伦敦商务孔院呢，一直比较牢记自己身上的一个重任了，应该说是。所以在过去的这个14年中呢，我们努力的去加强2校之间的合作，同时呢，在 其他的文化、教育、学术方面呢发挥着重要的作用。那大家从我们的名字上可以看到，商务汉语教学呢是我们的重点，所以对于老师来说，我们有常年的商务汉语教师的培训项目；对于学员来说呢，我们有非常成功的商务汉语和文化教学的 CLCB 项目。我想那 Catherine 过后可能会有详细的介绍。那么在这个伦敦商务孔院的这个教学过程中，我们所有的老师确实发挥了重要的作用。他们应该是在一线上文化交流的使者，也是文化差异的这种经历者。那我在想，今天给我的时间应该是7、8分钟，我就大概说一下，我觉得这些老师他所经历的一种文化差异，能看到大家在发挥什么样的作用。就是那个戴口罩的问题，我们在这个非华语地区或者是海外，2月份的时候呢，就国内疫情吃紧的时候呢，在海外的人呢就都基本上想戴上口罩，所以我记得我们的那个商务汉语教师呢也都是我记得有一位老师是晚上8、9点钟下班，然后他就戴着口罩回家，在路上呢他就被一个人拿棍子打了腿。当时其实发生这件事情的时候，我们都不知道，就可能觉得是一个坏蛋做了一件什么事情。但之后呢，就是我们所工作的这个 LSC 孔院LSC 这个工作场所呢，就贴出了一个标识，那上面写的就是如果你身体健康，请不要戴口罩，然后在那口罩上画了一个叉，然后下面还有一个小字的解释，就说当你有呼吸疾病、咳嗽、打喷嚏，或者是有其他的生病的症状，那就戴口罩。同时呢，请尽力待在家里，避免传染他人。其实这个呢，就让我们又回忆起来，当时为什么那个海外教师被打，很可能的一个原因就是那个打人的人觉得自己呢在伸张着正义。所以这种情况我们就要去思考，就是一种文化差异导致这样的结果。在中国，我们戴口罩可能有很多背景原因，比如说风沙大了，你可能会戴。然后呢，为了保暖，东北的人也会戴口罩。那还有呢，就是比如说那个很多亚洲的学生，我教过的留学生，他们就觉得戴口罩是很漂亮的一种方式，显得脸消瘦。所以有各种各样的背景原因，导致亚洲国家的人对戴口罩并不是像西方的那些想法。那这种情况就是一种文化的差异。当这种差异出现的时候，如何去理解，就是让人知道对方的那种观点背景的存在是非常关键的。所以我觉得就这种问题呢，就体现了一个文化冲突的问题。我们可能看到的就是表面戴还是不戴口罩，但是它背后呢，就像冰山一样，还有9%我们看不到的那些价值观念的问题啊，风俗习惯的问题啊，着装标准的问题啊，甚至还有政治的东西。那这种文化差异呢，就是需要我们这些老师，需要我们这些研究者真正的去做一些教学的研究的工作，然后能够帮助双方去理解差异。只有我们对差异做出反应之前，能够充分理解产生差异的这种原因和背景，我们才可能把我们的反应降低它的错误率，增加它的明智率。所以我觉得我们伦敦商务孔院这个机构还有他的老师呢，所做的事情就是努力的在促进各个国家对于文化差异的理解，希望能够架起一种沟通的桥梁。同样，今天各位呢来到这里参加这次的学术会议，也应该是有这样的一个目的。我们真的特别希望这次会议能够促进更多的合作，然后让我们一起在教学、在学术研究领域里面能够发挥更大的作用，让汉语教学能够成为世界人类命运共同体和谐发展能够发挥更多力量的可能。所以呢，我再一次的代表我们伦敦商务孔院，非常欢迎大家，期待着听大家的这种专业的这种研究结果，同时还有我们的这些文艺的演出、钢琴的表演。好，我就说这些，谢谢。
Thank you, Jinghui. Thank you very much. I think you raised a very, important point. We've always talked about what's the relationship between language and culture. And today's conference obviously is focused on teaching Chinese for academic purposes or for specific purposes. And I think culture remains to be a key issue. It'll be quite interesting through the conference to hear colleagues think about how can we contain culture knowledge? How do we express that in our teaching for specific purposes. Thank you very much. And welcome everybody again. I know we need to move to a different room for the first keynote speaker. So I think I will leave some time for people to move rooms. Before we do that, just, because when we move to the webinar, it's going to be a webinar setting, so it's slightly different from here. And if you have questions throughout the keynote speaker session, please feel free to use the Q&A part of the function of the webinar. So you can just say your name and your institution and follow with your question, because the chairperson of the session will be summarizing and asking the question on behalf of the group. And then when we move into the parallel session, there will be also chair, and then you can ask the question directly to the speaker. So that's a slightly different arrangement for the presentation.